Hello and welcome to the zonal grand final of the Mind Wars Mumbai Debate Championship in the Navi Mumbai zone. The motion before the floor for the grand final is the government should direct funding towards tech startup companies like Zomato and Ola over funding towards traditional new small and medium enterprises like small grocery stores, accounting companies, etc. Speaking in favor of this incredible topic is Sanya Chaudhary from St. Augustine's High School, and in opposition to this topic we have Anahita Dubey from Delhi Public School.
Let's begin with dissecting the word tech startup. Tech, that is technology, is the future of humankind. Startups, by definition, mean small and medium, newly established enterprises which can achieve unbelievable successes in future. Now, if you pay attention, the common word in both the definitions is future. I see funding tech startups as a way to invest in more innovative and better future. Now, I propose the idea that government should fund tech startup over traditional newly established enterprises. However, I am not saying that government should stop funding traditional companies. I just believe in prioritizing the tech startups. There are about 30,000 tech startups in India alone, and 2 to 3 tech startups born every day. Where Byju's, Nykaa, Flipkart, Swiggy, Amazon, just to name a few. Now, I believe that in future, people will be largely dependent on tech companies. Why to get out of your house for just a pack of milk when you can get it delivered to your footsteps in less time, less amount of energy, just like a few clicks, and most importantly, you won't have to get out in the hot sun, in large, stand in large queues and deal with high pollution. It's better to order milk from online. That was just an example. In my speech, I'm going to cover 2 arguments. First, how tech startups make our lives easier. Second, how tech startups generate employment. Firstly, anything and everything can be done through technology, from ordering food to ordering medicines, from makeup to medical advice, etc. The particularly interesting thing about tech startup is that they are excellent problem-solving products. It is seen that tech startups are usually aimed at solving an existing problem in the society. For example, Redbus. The founder of Redbus, Pahindra Sama, recognized a problem, that is mismanagement, lack of communication, and lack of group work in the booking of bus tickets, and he founded Redbus, which is a $1 million company today. Similarly, Nykaa, India's first online beauty product brand, Falguni Nayar, founded Nykaa to solve the problem of unavailability of branded beauty products in Indian stores. There are many more examples in the list. For example, Farm Easy. Farm Easy helped out thousands of people by delivering medicines to their footsteps during COVID-19 pandemic, where getting out of your house was a risky and questionable thing. Now, what I'm trying to convey from this example is that tech enterprises have the essential role of solving problems in society. Now, it is also an aim of them to make our lives easier. It is said that tech startups don't create product, they create platforms, and don't create customers, they create users. Now on to my second argument, that is tech startups generate employment. Now how? Tech startups are uniquely interesting because they employ a variety of types of employees. For example, white collar worker and also blue collar workers, from AI developers to web engineers, from drivers to delivery guys. So I repeat my statement that investing in tech startups is better than investing in traditional companies. Imagine a pandemic like COVID-19 without such technological advancement. Thank you.
The malaise which needs immediate attention of policymakers is to support the small and medium enterprises over tech companies, which mostly mobilize funding support from international markets and also from stock exchanges. Part of the government's economic support should be directed towards the informal and small and medium sectors rather than the big tech companies. My speech today will be focusing on two arguments. My first argument will be based on the importance of the informal sector in our community and how it forms a large part of our economy. My second argument will focus on how badly the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the informal sector. More than 82% of the workforce in India is employed in the unorganized sector, as noted by the International Labour Union. Accelerated digitization, goods and services tax, and the emergence of the gig economy have already caused India's informal economy to shrink to 15 to 20% from 52% in 2018. The informal economy is a global phenomenon, but there is a great variation within and across countries. They are the backbone of developing countries like India. The informal economy allows crucial wages for the weakest and the most vulnerable sections of society by encouraging them to channel their resources for the betterment of their families. It allows the unemployed to find work or start their businesses, thus boosting income and mitigating poverty. On top of that, it also offers goods and services in areas that may be spatially distant or unattractive for the big formal networks. Of course, some would argue that the informal economy leads to economic losses for a nation due to their negligence of tax. But I strongly believe that people should not only be seen as the workforce paying taxes, but as a workforce working together for the betterment of a nation. Taxation is a separate subject and needs a lot of improvement to include more people in the tax net. But at the same time, it must not be immediately directed to the workforce in the informal sectors. Moving on to my second argument. The informal economy has already been hit hard by the effects of the pandemic. The crushing impact of the COVID pandemic on informal sectors has impacted the livelihoods of many, making it more and more essential to support inclusive economic development and reduce poverty worldwide. Due to the lockdowns and stringent restrictions, the workforce included in the informal economy had found their markets closed, which were the only source of income for them. Shortage of money led to a lack of access to basic necessities which they needed to cope with the coronavirus downturn. They are also less likely to have their financial cushion, leaving them unprotected and vulnerable. The informal sectors never had the adequate amount of money required for infrastructure for proper health and sanitation. Thus, we know that those with the least suffer the most. Addressing informality is thus essential and urgent to support inclusive economic development and reduce poverty worldwide. The COVID-19 pandemic has only reinforced this sense of urgency. Thus, the government should make adequate relief packages and at the same time have the required data to see who all will be included and excluded and how will the funds be distributed. The red tape between the formal and the informal economy should be removed for the overall inclusive development of a nation, as every citizen matters.
My question to team opposition is, how will you fill the huge gap that will be generated as a result of prioritizing traditional startups over tech startups? Now, what I mean by gap is the lack of social and technological advancement, growth of society and employment.
Mahatma Gandhi once said that if a nation has to progress, then the villages in the nation also have to progress. Suppose, for example, if you have a whole cake to yourself, the big startup companies, what do? They distribute the crumbles to thousands of people. But if the small and medium enterprises get the required support and funding of the government, then they will make a self-sufficient society, contribute a lot to the overall development of a nation. What is your take on the 80% of the workforce of our country if we are only going to support the tech companies? How are we going to support a vast workforce who are engaged in labor-intensive informal sectors? I mean, what is your idea of growth? Are those the tech companies or the informal sectors?
Okay, now 80% workforce, as you said. Now, I have included in my argument that tech startups include all kinds of employees in it. For example, let's take Amazon. Amazon has 10,000 plus employees in India alone. Now, Amazon employs a different variety of workers. For example, chefs, delivery guys, people who probably do the work of getting ingredients, etc. And now a way to tackle the 80% workforce can also be tackled through a tech startup, because even tech startups employ not labor intensive, but like workers of blue collars, as I said, drivers, delivery boys, chefs, people who work in their factories, laborers, etc.
So yeah, you said that big companies like Amazon, Zomato, Ola, they hire all these drivers, these people who bring the raw materials and all. But if we take the example of the pandemic, then we can see that these companies are still in profit. They are still working and are sufficient. But there's a high rise in unemployment as many people have lost their jobs. So yeah, how do you tackle that?
Okay, so a lot of people lost job due to pandemic. Right. Let's see this scenario, this narrative from another perspective. Okay, still COVID-19 pandemic is going on. So I assume we are still during a pandemic right now. No one has the idea when it will end, or it will end or not. So what my point is, if, for example, this pandemic never ends, or after this we get into, God forbid, and other pandemic. So still people who work at tech startups will have their job. Now, instead of thinking, now there can be many other ways to provide jobs to people who lost their jobs. For example, opening more companies, or making few changes in laws and policies in the government. Your house supports that traditional startups should get the funding. Now, we know that technology touches all aspects of our life. Now, how will you solve the problem of lack of technological advancement by only funding the traditional companies? Now, for example, let's take a grocery stores. Now, as the grocery store progresses, there is a high chance of the owner using tech to, advertise it, or to make it more accessible. So what are your thoughts on the fact that advancement of technology will not only help the tech startups, but also the traditional ones?
If I can just say it very frankly, I think that the tech advancement part of the informal sector is a completely irrelevant and a different topic. But we are on the topic, so let me just say that the big companies, what do is that, yes, they employ the people in the informal sectors, but that's not inclusive development. That's actually colonization of the informal sectors, which does not make them self-sufficient. And as I mentioned earlier, they can lose their jobs in a matter of seconds. So, for the overall progress of a nation, I think our main concern is to have a self-sufficient society.
So wonderful round, the both of you. Honestly, we were discussing questions because you guys asked everything that we had in mind. So Sanya, I'm going to ask you your question, and then the opposition question will be later, of course, as we've been doing so far. So question to you is, when it comes to tech startups, there are always private investors that are willing to fund these tech startups because they have their own research goals, they want their companies to be involved with research, etc. Given that tech startups are something that can be quite risky because they're so volatile, why do you think it is okay for us to spend public money that we pay with taxes? So if they can already get private money and private funding, and it is risky, why do you think it is worth the government to take the risk?
Okay, so there's an assumption that across the world, especially in India, that tech startups are risky. Now, it can be said that tech startups are risky, but also tech startups have a high chance of being successful because of the unique ability of getting from one user to millions of users seemingly overnight. For example, like everyone present here, I'm pretty sure they all use things like YouTube or things like Google. Now, for example, me, I'm using YouTube. I'm not giving anything to YouTube, but I'm I'm still profiting the company. So as I said, they create users, not customers. So I think they might be risky, but they also have a high chance of success.
I have a question for you. The informal economy, which you call it, there are almost 53 million odd, such companies in the country, and there's enough fund that's already gone in. And it's about time that we invest in innovation so that we can open doors to the actual future where we belong before we again tell ourselves that our country is probably 100 years behind another country in innovation. So isn't it about time that we invest as a government, as a policymaker, into startup and innovation rather than thinking about strengthening the backbone which is already strong?
I think that if our backbone was already strong enough, then our innovations and creations would be piling up. And I think that the whole reason why we are having this debate is because our backbone is not strong enough. That's why we are debating over whether we should fund them more so that they become self-sufficient.
I do have a follow-up. The debate is about funding the tech companies against funding the small and medium enterprises. So backbone is a different reference. Let's put that aside. Funding the next innovation frontier that lies for the next 10 years. What's your take on that? If we never jump to innovation, how are you going to move the country towards newer frontiers?
As I mentioned earlier in my speech, there are already many investors and stock exchanges over there which are funding the companies more than enough. And the companies are completely self-sufficient on their own, and they are like giving out IPOs and all. And then there's this point about prosperity. We say that if we support for example, if we support the tech companies, then the prosperity that comes will only be restricted to a certain amount of people. It would not go to all the informal sectors of a society. And I think that really won't be good for the overall development of a nation because, well, there would still be poverty and we would still not be considered a developed country on the whole. So, yeah.
The judges can now please take a couple minutes to deliberate. After which, I'd like to invite Sujit, once that's done, to come by on stage to announce the result, the winner, and give them their trophy.
Thank you everybody. Thank you for the lovely invite there. I would say that this has been one hell of a round. This has put us under a big question mark. All three judges were discussing this a number of times and we were really not able to arrive at a decision compared to the quarterfinals, the semi-finals. The finals put us in such a difficult spot that we had to finally go for a vote out. And out of the three of us, two of us voted for the winner obviously, and one of them was still against it, against the number of consensus that as judges we have had. So at Mind Wars, I think, which has been a terrific round today of debating for the Navi Mumbai zone, we finally have a runner-up and a winner. We've had a difficult time to decide that, but it has to go ahead with somebody, and I would love to invite Anahita Dubey to collect the runner-up for today. Thank you. I have fond memories of being the runner-up several times, and it indeed felt great to compete against a wonderful competitor, and today's winner stands chosen, and that happens to be Sania Chaudhary. Congratulations.
Congratulations to both speakers for making it this far. Commiserations, Anahita, on not making it this round. But in good news, we do have the city finale coming up that you will also be making it to, in addition to Sania. So the both of you together will be going through to our city finale. So this is in no way the end of the road for you. And all the best for those rounds. All the best as well, Sania.
Thank you.